The first time the man we know as Paul appears in the biblical story, he is standing beside a pile of coats while another man is being stoned to death. The dying man is Stephen. The coats belong to the people throwing the stones, and Paul approves of everything happening in front of him. Roughly 3 decades later, the scene has reversed. Now Paul is the prisoner. He believes his own death is approaching. Winter is coming, and he asks a younger man named Timothy to bring the cloak he left behind in Troas. In the first scene, Paul guards other people's coats while a Christian dies. In the final scene, Paul asks for his own coat while waiting to die as a Christian. What happened between those 2 moments? The answer is hidden across 13 letters. Letters written from different cities during different crises to people facing completely different problems. Some were written with anger, some with relief, some through tears, some from prison. One was written when Paul knew that there might not be another letter after it. Read separately, they can feel like 13 collections of doctrine, but place them in their most likely chronological order, and they become something else. They become a single human life unfolding in real time. You meet Paul as a fierce missionary defending a gospel that has barely taken root. You watch him become a spiritual father, a wounded pastor, a prisoner, an older mentor, and finally a man preparing to hand everything to the generation coming after him. The theology develops, but so does the man. Here is the detail that changes how you read these letters. Paul never sat in one peaceful room and wrote a systematic theology from beginning to end. Every letter emerged from a real situation. Someone was grieving. Someone was dividing a church. Someone was distorting grace. Someone had betrayed him. Someone was enslaved. Someone needed an answer before the next messenger left the city. And because the New Testament does not arrange Paul's letters according to the date they were written, the human story is easy to miss. Letters addressed to churches appear first. Letters addressed to individuals come later. Within those groups they are arranged roughly according to length. Romans stands near the front because it is long. Philemon stands near the end because it is short. That system makes the letters easy to locate, but it hides the biography. A few dates and locations remain debated, which is normal when reconstructing events from nearly 2,000 years ago. Galatians is especially important because scholars disagree over whether it belongs very early or somewhat later in Paul's ministry. The reconstruction we will follow is one of the most widely used. Galatians first, followed by 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, the Corinthian letters, Romans, the 4 prison letters, 1 Timothy, Titus, and finally 2 Timothy. So let us follow the ink from the first surviving letter to the last. The story begins around AD 48 or 49. Paul is likely in Syrian Antioch, recently returned from his first missionary journey through Pisidian Antioch, Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe. That journey has nearly killed him. In Lystra, a crowd stones Paul and drags his body outside the city, believing he is dead. The disciples gather around him. Then Paul gets up, he walks back into the city, and the next day he continues the journey. That detail matters because it tells you something about the man about to write his first surviving letter. Paul is not defending the gospel from a comfortable distance. He has already bled for the people receiving it. Then disturbing news reaches him. Teachers have entered the Galatian churches and are telling Gentile believers that trusting Christ is not enough. They must also be circumcised and adopt the ceremonial requirements of the Mosaic Law. Faith plus performance, Christ plus ritual, grace plus something supplied by the believer. Paul does not hear this as a minor disagreement about religious customs. He hears the foundation of the gospel being moved. So he writes Galatians. And unlike almost every other letter he will send, he skips the thanksgiving. Galatians chapter 1 verses 6 and 7, I marvel that you are turning away so soon from him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel which is not another. But there are some who trouble you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ. There is astonishment in that sentence. But underneath the astonishment is pain. Paul had told people standing outside Israel's covenant that the door to God had been opened to them through Christ. Now someone was persuading them that the door had never truly opened at all. Slow down on this because the whole letter hangs on one word: justified. The Greek verb is dikaiou. It comes from courtroom language. It means to declare someone righteous, to hand down a favorable verdict. It does not mean God studies a flawless human record and acknowledges that the person has earned acceptance. It means God gives a righteous verdict to someone whose confidence rests in Christ, rather than in a case of their own making. A man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. Paul reaches back beyond Moses to Abraham. Abraham was counted righteous before Sinai, before the ceremonial system, before circumcision could become a boundary marker separating one people from another. The promise came first, and here is what most people miss about Galatians. Paul does not only warn against legalism, he warns just as strongly against using grace as permission for self-indulgence. You, brethren, have been called to liberty. Only do not use liberty as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Freedom that only serves itself is not freedom. It is another kind of cage. That is the first surviving sound of Paul's pen. Grace defended with a raised voice. Then the voice changes. Around AD 50 or 51, Paul is in Corinth, but his mind keeps returning to Thessalonica, a city he had been forced to leave in the middle of the night after a mob began searching for him. He left behind a young church with almost nothing, no completed New Testament, no centuries of Christian tradition, no established institution protecting them. They possess only a few weeks of teaching and a dangerous public confession. Jesus, not Caesar, is Lord. Paul sends Timothy back to discover whether they have survived. Then Timothy returns with good news. They are still standing. 1 Thessalonians reads like the relief of a father who has been holding his breath. We were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you had become dear to us. This is not a distant theologian producing a religious document. This is a man emotionally attached to the people receiving the letter. But Timothy also brings a difficult question. Some believers in Thessalonica have died. The church fears that those people will miss the return of Christ and be excluded from the promise. This is not abstract speculation about the end times. This is grief standing beside a grave. So Paul comforts them before he explains anything. I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others who have no hope. Paul describes the return of Christ using the Greek word parousia. The word means presence or arrival, and in the wider Greco-Roman world, it could be used for the official arrival of a ruler or important dignitary. Paul applies that language to the coming of the true king. Caesar may claim authority over the empire, but Caesar does not have the final authority over the dead. Christ is coming, and death will have to release everyone who belongs to him. Notice that Paul does not command the Thessalonians to stop grieving. He gives their grief a horizon. He closes the passage with the reason he has told them these things. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Paul's early teaching about the return of Christ is not offered to satisfy curiosity. It is hope spoken at a graveside. Only a short time later, probably from the same city, Paul writes again. 2 Thessalonians is necessary because the comfort has been distorted. Some people now believe that the day of the Lord has already arrived. Others have stopped working and abandoned their responsibilities while waiting for the end. Paul corrects both errors. If anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. This is not a condemnation of people who are unable to work. Paul is confronting people who are capable of contributing but have chosen disorder. Hope was never permission to abandon the present. You still feed your family. You still keep your word. You still serve your neighbor. You still do the work placed in front of you. 1 Thessalonians says, do not despair about the future. 2 Thessalonians says, do not use the future as an excuse to neglect today. Do you see the balance? In Galatians, Paul is a defender standing at the gate. In 1 Thessalonians, he is a father comforting grieving children. In 2 Thessalonians, he is a steadying voice pulling believers away from panic and irresponsibility. Then he runs directly into Corinth. Corinth sits on a narrow strip of land connecting northern and southern Greece. It is wealthy, competitive, and obsessed with status. Sailors, merchants, travelers, and philosophers pass through its trade routes. Acts tells us that Paul meets Priscilla and Aquila there. They had recently left Rome after Emperor Claudius ordered Jews to depart from the city. Like Paul, they work with leather and tents. Paul remains in Corinth for roughly 18 months, longer than he stays in many other places. He works beside these people. He eats in their homes. He knows their families. Then he leaves for Ephesus, and the church begins to fracture. Groups form around favorite teachers. One person says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. Another claims Peter. A man is sleeping with his father's wife. Believers are suing one another in secular courts. The wealthy are humiliating poorer believers at the Lord's table. Spiritual gifts are being used as symbols of status. Paul writes 1 Corinthians directly into the chaos. Each of you says, I am of Paul, or I am of Apollos. Is Christ divided? Paul refuses to become a religious celebrity. Every answer he gives circles around one central question. What does the cross look like inside a real and difficult community? It looks like giving up a right for someone else's sake. It looks like waiting for the poor before you begin eating. It looks like using your gifts to serve rather than to impress. And here is what most people miss about the most famous chapter in this letter. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 was not originally written for a wedding. Love is patient was written to impatient people. Love does not envy was written to people competing with one another. Love does not parade itself was written to people displaying their spiritual gifts. Love does not seek its own was written to a church divided by self-interest. Paul is telling them that giftedness without love is only noise wearing a costume, all volume, no music. Then he reaches the deepest fracture of all. Some people in Corinth are denying the resurrection. Paul does not treat this as one doctrine among many. If Christ is not risen, your faith is futile. We are of all men the most pitiable. But now Christ is risen from the dead and has become the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. First fruits is a harvest term. The first portion of the crop is not the entire harvest. It is the beginning and the guarantee that more is coming. Christ did not rise merely to demonstrate that he was exceptional. He rose as the beginning of a harvest that will include everyone who belongs to him. The believers in Thessalonica had been promised that the dead in Christ would rise. Now the Corinthians are shown the theological foundation beneath that promise. One letter comforts the mourners. Another explains why the comfort can be trusted. This is what begins to happen when Paul's letters are read chronologically. The ideas do not appear once and disappear. They develop as new situations force Paul to reveal another dimension of the same truth. But 1 Corinthians does not solve everything. Paul makes a painful follow-up visit that goes badly. Someone in the church humiliates or publicly opposes him. He leaves wounded and writes what he later calls a severe letter, written with many tears. That letter has not survived. Then Paul waits. Eventually, Titus finds him in Macedonia with good news. Many in Corinth have repented. The relationship has not completely healed, but the door is open. Out of that relief comes 2 Corinthians around AD 55 or 56. It is the most emotionally exposed letter, Paul writes. Galatians shows his anger. Thessalonians shows his affection. 1 Corinthians shows his authority. 2 Corinthians shows his wounds. We were burdened beyond measure, above strength. so that we despaired even of life. That is not a man pretending faith has made him emotionally invulnerable. Rival teachers in Corinth mock Paul as unimpressive in person and powerful only when writing from a distance. Paul's response is strange. Instead of matching their boasting, he lists everything that makes him appear weak: beatings, shipwrecks, sleepless nights, hunger, danger from rivers, robbers, cities, wilderness, sea, and people who claim to be brothers. Then he mentions a thorn in the flesh. Paul says he asked the Lord 3 times to remove it. He never identifies the thorn, so we should resist the temptation to pretend that we can. It may have been physical illness, persistent opposition, or another form of suffering. What matters is that God did not remove it. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Picture someone sitting beside a hospital bed after months of the same unanswered prayer. Have you been there? Asking faithfully and receiving the strength to endure instead of the change you requested. Paul's answer is not that the pain is imaginary. It is that an unanswered request is not proof of an absent God. 3 times Paul asks, "The thorn remains, and grace remains sufficient." Here is the detail that changes everything. The man who defended the sufficiency of grace in Galatians has now learned that grace is not only sufficient for salvation, it is sufficient for suffering. The theology has entered his body. If this journey through the letters is helping you see Paul as more than a collection of isolated verses, subscribe and share this with someone who has always struggled to connect his writings. The conflict in Corinth eventually settles, and Paul turns his attention west toward a church he has never visited. Rome, Jewish believers had been forced to leave the city during the reign of Claudius. When they later returned, they likely found house churches in which Gentile believers had taken on greater influence. Real theological and cultural tension existed inside real homes. Paul wants to introduce himself, prepare for future ministry in the West, and explain his gospel with complete clarity. So around AD 57, probably from Corinth, Paul dictates the letter to the Romans. A secretary named Tertius writes it down. A woman named Phoebe is widely understood to have carried it toward Rome. Romans is not an emergency response like Galatians. It is the argument built patiently from the foundation upward. Paul begins with the bad news. Gentile society has exchanged the knowledge of God for idols. Religious people do not escape judgment merely because they know the law. Knowing the standard is not the same as keeping it. By chapter 3, every human defense has fallen silent. There is no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. No difference does not mean everyone commits identical sins. It means no one possesses grounds for boasting before God. Then Paul presents the answer. He describes Jesus using the Greek word hilasterion. The word can be translated in ways such as propitiation or atoning sacrifice. And it is also the word repeatedly used in the Greek Old Testament for the mercy seat, the cover of the ark associated with the Day of Atonement. Paul deliberately places the death of Jesus inside the language of sacrifice, mercy, and reconciliation. Christ does not merely explain forgiveness. Through his blood, he accomplishes what forgiveness requires. Having been justified by faith, we have peace with God, not merely a peaceful feeling, the actual end of hostility. Then, in chapter 6, Paul answers an obvious objection. If grace covers sin, why not continue sinning? Certainly not. Sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under law, but under grace. Grace does not eliminate obedience. It changes the reason for it. You do not obey to purchase belonging. You obey because belonging has already been given to you in Christ. Chapter 7 gives one of Scripture's most honest descriptions of internal conflict. The good that I will to do, I do not do. Paul does not write like a man unfamiliar with the struggle between desire and action. Then chapter 8 answers the despair. There is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. Not less condemnation, not postponed condemnation, not temporary forgiveness until God sees how well you perform. No condemnation. Neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor spiritual powers, nor present circumstances, nor the future, nor height, nor depth can separate the believer from the love of God in Christ. Paul then spends 3 chapters wrestling with the question that has been present beneath the whole letter. What about Israel? If many Gentiles are entering while many of Paul's own people are rejecting the gospel, has God abandoned his promises? Paul does not answer from an emotionally safe distance. I have great sorrow and continual grief in my heart. He warns Gentile believers against arrogance. They are like wild branches grafted into an existing olive tree. They do not support the root supports them. The gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Then all of that theology lands in ordinary life. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Bless those who persecute you. Do not repay evil with evil. Welcome believers who disagree with you over food and sacred days. Guilt gives way to grace. Grace produces new life. New life creates a community capable of carrying disagreement without contempt. And Paul closes Romans by naming actual people. Phoebe, Priscilla, Aquila, Junia. The theology was never abstract. It always had names attached to it. Paul now plans to carry financial support from Gentile churches to poor Jewish believers in Jerusalem. The gift is meant to become a living picture of the unity he has been preaching. Instead, Jerusalem brings his arrest. He spends 2 years imprisoned in Caesarea. He appeals to Caesar as a Roman citizen. He survives a violent storm and a shipwreck near Malta. And when Paul finally reaches Rome around AD 60, he does not arrive as the free missionary who hoped to use the city as a base for reaching Spain. He arrives in chains. Yet Acts ends with him living under guard in a rented house and teaching openly. The messenger is chained. The message is not. From this period come 4 letters commonly known as the prison epistles: Ephesians, Colossians, Philemon, and Philippians. The exact order of these 4 is difficult to establish. Philemon and Colossians are closely connected, and Ephesians appears to have traveled through the same network. Philippians may have been written somewhat later during the same Roman imprisonment. The group is clearer than the precise sequence within it, and something changes in Paul's voice. The earlier letters often put out fires in individual churches. These letters repeatedly pull the camera back. Ephesians opens before creation itself. Believers were chosen in Christ before the foundation of the world. God's purpose is to gather all things in heaven and earth together in Christ. Picture the contrast. A prisoner in Rome writes about the purpose governing the universe, while Rome insists that it organizes the world through laws, roads, armies, and emperors. By grace you have been saved through faith, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship. The Greek word is poema, something made, something crafted. The word from which English eventually receives poem. Believers are not saved by good works. They are saved for good works. Then Paul turns that same grace toward the wall separating Jew and Gentile. He himself is our peace, who has made both one and has broken down the middle wall of separation. Paul does not merely say Jesus offers a peace plan. Jesus himself is the peace. The goal is not Gentiles becoming Jews or Jews disappearing into Gentile culture. Both are reconciled to God in one body. Colossians, likely carried through the same network of messengers, responds to a different danger. Teachers are promoting a mixture of philosophy, religious regulations, severe treatment of the body, and fascination with spiritual powers. The exact system is difficult to reconstruct, but its central message appears clear. Christ alone is not enough. The believers need additional practices, restrictions, or access to a higher spiritual experience. Paul answers by making Christ larger than everything competing for their loyalty. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, and in him all things consist. The one holding creation together makes peace through the blood of the cross. The cosmic and the personal meet in the same Christ. You are complete in him. No hidden ritual can add another floor to a house whose foundation is already Christ. And true to Paul's pattern, the larger his vision of Christ becomes, the more practical his instructions become. The same letter that describes Christ holding the universe together ends by telling husbands, wives, parents, children, masters, and workers how to treat one another. Alongside Colossians travels the shortest and most personal letter Paul sends. Philemon, 25 verses addressed to one man about another man. Philemon is a Christian whose household includes an enslaved man named Onesimus. Onesimus has left. He has somehow crossed paths with Paul in Rome and become a believer. Now Paul sends him back. That decision should not be softened. Roman slavery was brutal, and an enslaved person returning without protection could be dangerously vulnerable. But Paul places something inside the relationship that the system was never designed to contain. No longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a beloved brother. Then Paul goes further. If he has wronged you or owes anything, put that on my account. Receive him as you would receive me. Charge what he owes to me. This is the structure of the gospel entering one household. The guilty person is received because someone else stands between him and the debt. The declaration in Galatians that there is neither slave nor free has now reached a real doorway. The doctrine has acquired a face. Then comes Philippians, probably written during the same Roman imprisonment. It may be the warmest letter Paul sends because the Philippians have supported him repeatedly. They sent assistance through Epaphroditus, who nearly died while serving Paul. The words joy and rejoice appear again and again. But Philippians is not a simple book about maintaining a positive attitude. Paul openly names suffering, opposition, and the possibility of execution. The things which happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. His chains have made Christ known among the palace guard. Rome controls the chain. Christ controls what the chain means. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. This is not a man fascinated with death. It is a man whose fear of death has lost its authority over him. Paul says he feels pulled in two directions. To depart and be with Christ would be better. To remain would allow him to continue serving the churches. Then Paul turns toward a conflict between two women in Philippi, Euodia and Syntyche. Their disagreement is serious enough for Paul to name them and ask others to help them reconcile. His answer is not merely, try harder to get along. He presents the mind of Christ. Being in the form of God, he did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. Christ possessed the highest status and moved downward. He served, he humbled himself, he went to the cross. Then God exalted him. The theology of Christ's incarnation lands inside a disagreement between two church members. Paul also looks back at his own religious credentials. Hebrew of Hebrews, a Pharisee, blameless according to the righteousness found in the law. He calls those achievements skybola, compared with the value of knowing Christ. The word refers to refuse, waste, something thrown away. And notice how Paul describes his spiritual life after decades of ministry. He does not say, I have arrived. He says, I press on. Quick word before we continue. Everything here represents careful work with the biblical text, historical context, and original languages. If this kind of study matters to you, consider becoming a channel member. That support helps make deeper studies like this possible. Time moves forward, and Paul's focus changes again. The pastoral letters suggest that he was released from his first Roman imprisonment and spent additional years traveling and strengthening churches. During this period, likely around AD 63 to 65, he writes 1 Timothy and Titus. These are letters to younger leaders Paul has trained. The great missionary is now thinking about what happens when the founder is no longer present. 1 Timothy is addressed to a young leader serving in Ephesus. False teachers are spreading speculation and misusing the law. The church needs stable leadership, sound teaching, and practical order. Paul writes with the authority of an apostle, but also with the affection of a father. The purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart, from a good conscience, and from sincere faith. Not winning arguments, not building a platform, love without a mask. Paul then reflects on his own conversion. He does not merely say that he was the chief of sinners, he says, I am. Time has not made Paul more impressed with himself. It has made him more aware of mercy. The closer he walks with Christ, the more clearly he sees his continuing dependence on grace. That is not spiritual failure. That is what grace looks like when it has been working for years. Paul tells Timothy, let no one despise your youth, but be an example. He does not tell Timothy to demand respect. He tells him to become the kind of person whose life makes the message credible. Paul's qualifications for leadership focus far more on character than charisma, self-control, faithfulness, hospitality, gentleness, freedom from the love of money, the ability to manage responsibility without becoming controlled by it. Paul has watched gifted people damage a church because their character could not carry their influence. Gift may attract attention. Character keeps a community safe. Titus is written around the same period to a more experienced co-worker overseeing churches on Crete. The churches need elders. False teachers need to be confronted. Believers need to understand how the gospel changes ordinary conduct. Paul writes one of his clearest summaries of salvation, not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy, he saved us through the washing of regeneration and renewing of the Holy Spirit. Notice that Paul includes himself in the description of what people were before grace appeared: foolish, disobedient, deceived. The gospel he defended with a raised voice in Galatians has not grown smaller with age, it has grown deeper. Paul also explains that grace does more than forgive. The grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that, denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly. Grace teaches. This completes a movement that began in Galatians. Galatians says grace cannot be replaced by religious performance. Titus says grace cannot be confused with moral passivity. You cannot earn grace through obedience, and you cannot encounter grace without being changed by it. Then we arrive at the final room. 2 Timothy does not sound like the other letters. It is probably around AD 66 or 67. Rome has burned. Nero has blamed Christians, and the Roman historian Tacitus records the horrifying punishments that followed. Following Christ in Rome has become genuinely dangerous. Paul is imprisoned again. This captivity appears much harsher than the relative freedom described at the end of Acts. Paul is difficult to locate. Many of his companions are gone. He believes death is close. Picture the scene: no crowd, no public debate, no missionary team waiting for instructions. An older man in Roman custody writes to the younger man he calls his son in the faith. He remembers Timothy's tears. He remembers Timothy's grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. He tells him to stir up the gift of God. The expression carries the image of rekindling a fire. The flame has not disappeared, but it must be tended. And here is the detail that changes everything. Paul is not writing from safety and telling someone else to be courageous. He is writing from chains. Do not be ashamed of me, his prisoner, but share with me in the sufferings for the gospel. Many people have already turned away. One man, Onesiphorus, searches through Rome until he finds Paul. That small detail reveals how alone Paul may have been. Sometimes faithfulness looks like preaching to thousands. Sometimes it looks like refusing to stop searching for one forgotten prisoner. Paul hands the mission to the next generation in a single sentence. The things that you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. 4 generations are compressed into one verse. Paul teaches Timothy. Timothy teaches faithful people. Those people teach others. The younger Paul drove forward into new cities. The older Paul is learning to release the work into other hands. That requires a different kind of courage. Jesus Christ, of the seed of David, was raised from the dead according to my gospel, for which I suffer trouble as an evildoer, even to the point of chains. But the word of God is not chained. Paul is chained. The word is not. He has already lived this truth. His imprisonment carried the gospel into the palace guard. His chains produced letters that traveled across the empire. Rome could restrict his body. It could not reverse the resurrection. Then Paul asked Timothy to bring Mark. That name should stop you. Years earlier, Paul refused to travel with Mark after Mark had abandoned an earlier mission. The disagreement became so severe that Paul and Barnabas separated. Now near the end, Paul wants Mark beside him. He is useful to me for ministry. Something healed. Scripture does not tell us exactly how, but the man Paul once refused to take has become one of the people he most wants in his final season. Even Paul's own relationships were not beyond the reach of the grace he preached. Then the letter becomes almost unbearably ordinary. Bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas when you come, and the books, especially the parchments. A cloak. Books. Parchments. This is the man who argued before governors, crossed seas, confronted mobs, and established churches across the Roman world. And one of his last recorded requests is for a coat. He is cold. He wants something to read. Even while facing death, he still wants to study. Do your utmost to come before winter. Please come. Bring my cloak. Do not wait too long. Early Christian tradition holds that Paul was executed in Rome not long afterward. The New Testament itself does not record the execution, so that detail must remain clearly labeled as tradition rather than scripture. But 2 Timothy leaves little doubt that Paul believes the end is approaching. I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. The word translated departure can carry the image of releasing or untying something, like taking down a tent or loosening a ship from its moorings. Paul does not describe death as though everything is being destroyed. The rope is being untied. The journey is changing. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Paul does not say he won every argument. He does not say every church remained loyal. He does not say every prayer was answered in the way he requested. He does not say his body was healed or his work became easy. He says he kept the faith. Now step back and look at the whole road. Galatians begins with a missionary astonished that believers are abandoning grace. The Thessalonian letters show a father comforting the grieving and steadying the confused. The Corinthian letters show a pastor confronting chaos and then exposing his own wounds. Romans lays out the gospel from the foundation upward for people who have never met him. The prison letters show a man in chains seeing a Christ larger than the empire surrounding him. Ephesians pulls the story back before creation. Colossians declares the supremacy of Christ. Philemon carries reconciliation into one household. Philippians discovers joy without denying suffering. 1 Timothy and Titus show Paul forming the people who must continue after him. 2 Timothy shows him finally releasing the work into hands other than his own. First, grace was never merely the entrance to Paul's story. It is the ground beneath every step. He does not leave grace behind in Galatians like a beginner's lesson he no longer needs. He develops it in Romans. He celebrates it in Ephesians. He acts it out in Philemon. He depends on it in 2 Corinthians. And decades after his conversion, he still describes himself as someone living entirely by mercy. If you have quietly begun measuring God's love by how well your week went, Paul's entire life argues against that calculation. Your obedience matters. It was never the price of God's love. Second, God's work in Paul's life rarely looked like what Paul originally asked for. He wanted open roads and received chains. He asked for the thorn to leave, and it remained. He established churches, and some of them nearly fell apart after he left. He planned to reach Rome as a free missionary and arrived as a prisoner. Yet some of his most enduring words emerged from seasons that looked like failure from the outside. If your own life feels more restricted than you planned, restriction is not proof that the story has gone wrong. It may be the place where the next letter is written, and maybe the part that stays with me most is this. The first time Paul appears in Scripture, he is watching Stephen die. Stephen falls to his knees beneath the stones and prays, "Lord, do not charge them with this sin." Paul hears that prayer. At the time, it does not appear to change him. He continues persecuting believers. He enters homes. He drags men and women away. He carries official permission to arrest Christians in Damascus. Then Christ stops him on the road. Years pass. The persecutor becomes the persecuted. The man who helped scatter the church spends the rest of his life gathering it. And near the end, Paul describes his own trial. "At my first defense, no one stood with me, but all forsook me. May it not be charged against them? May it not be charged against them?" It is almost the same prayer Stephen prayed, while Paul stood nearby watching him die. Decades later, Paul has been abandoned at his own trial, and the mercy he once witnessed has made its way all the way into him. The letters do not merely show Paul explaining the gospel, they show the gospel remaking Paul. It takes a persecutor and teaches him to forgive the people who abandon him. It takes a proud Pharisee and teaches him to boast in weakness. It takes the man who once guarded coats at an execution and brings him to a prison where he asks for his own coat before facing death. Faithfully, the first pile of coats belonged to men committing violence. The final cloak belonged to a man who had learned mercy. That is the life hidden across these 13 letters, not 13 disconnected arguments. One man, learning, suffering, loving, correcting, failing, forgiving, enduring, and slowly handing everything he has received to the people who will remain after him. The locations change, the problems change, the tone changes, and Paul changes, but one conviction survives every city, every beating, every disappointment, every shipwreck, and every prison door. Christ is enough. Enough when the gospel is challenged. Enough when people you love are grieving. Enough when a church disappoints you. Enough when your prayer is answered with endurance instead of escape. Enough when your plans collapse. Enough when winter is approaching and only one friend remains. Paul begins by fighting to keep grace free. He ends as living proof of what grace can do to a human being. Subscribe if this changed how you see Paul's 13 letters. Leave a comment and tell us which letter meets you exactly where you are right now. Share this with someone who has always found Paul difficult to read, and pray for us as we continue opening these texts together. May the same grace that found Paul on the road, sustained him through every storm, and stood beside him when everyone else had left meet you wherever your own road has taken you. God bless you.